Since Chris Watts pleaded guilty to the murder of his pregnant wife Shanann and her 2 daughters, his impending trial has now been halted, giving opportunity for those involved in the case to speak out. Chris's parents, Ronnie and Cindy Watts, made the controversial move to be interviewed by Denver 7 News. Cindy Watts is concerned that Chris made the guilty plea in a bid to save his life and believes he has been coerced into the plea by his legal team. Ronnie believes there is some credence to his son's account that Shanann murdered her own children. Ronnie said about Shanann, "You have to get to know her, be around her, put it like that." They insist that Watts loved his children too much to harm them. The interview prompted Shanann's family to release the following statement. Monday evening, the parents of Chris Watts gave an interview in which they attempted to defend their son. In doing so, they felt the need to make vicious, grotesque, and utterly false statements about Shanann. Their false statements, however hurtful and inaccurate, will never alter the truth about Shanann, and will never alter the truth about the crimes committed by their son, Chris Watts. Shanann's memory and reputation deserves to be protected. And her family is fully prepared to do so. With Watts's sentencing hearing due on November 19, there is still time for Chris Watts to change his plea and revert to trial, which is what his parents would prefer he did, but as parents, they are both victims in the media circus that has prevailed the tragedy. The concealment of the autopsy reports of Shanann and the children has in a way, sugar-coated the severity of the crime. District Attorney for the case, Michael Rook, has stated that a partial motive is clear, that Chris Watts is a liar regarding the children's deaths and that those autopsy reports will not be sealed after the sentencing hearing. In yet another turn of events, the woman Chris Watts was having an affair with has also gone public with the help of the Denver Post. Nicole Kessinger, 30, an office worker, met Chris at the office place of his Anadarko employer. Nicole claims a softly spoken Chris approached her and a relationship developed. He is said to have told her that he was in the process of a divorce and the father of 2 daughters. He spoke frequently with Nicole and she claims the pair met up to 4 times a week when their relationship became physical in July 2018. However, when the news reports began flooding in that Shanann was missing, this is when Nicole realized Watts was not separated from Shanann as he had claimed. Nicole contacted the Weld County Sheriff on the morning of August 15 and was promptly questioned by the FBI. Watts was then arrested that evening. This case begins to cast great similarities with the Scott Peterson case. Although Nicole stated that she and Chris had not made any long-term plans and Chris had spoken about wanting to get an apartment for himself and somewhere his daughters could stay. Interestingly, it seems a little strange that Nicole would not know Watts was still with Shanann. He appeared frequently in Shanann's social media postings and she worked in the same building where Watts' co-workers would be aware of his marital status. Nicole does not mention if he used a pseudonym. For Watts, Nicole's statement effectively gave him motive to murder his family and then lie to the police and press, but the only person who knows the truth of what happened is Chris Watts. Even if his account that Shanann murdered the girls was credible, then why did he go to such extremes to conceal the bodies and hide the crime? The facts are clear. Shanann was alive at 2 a.m. on August 13 and deceased by 5 a.m. and being loaded into his truck alongside the bodies of his own children. The sentencing hearing allows the victims' families a forum of which to face the defendant with a victim impact statement. Will Shanann's family choose to face Watts? They have already given their consent for the death penalty charges to be dropped.
We would like to thank everyone in the Frederick Police Department and all the agencies involved for working so hard to find my daughter, granddaughters, and Nico. Thank you everyone for coming out to the candlelight visual and saying all your prayers. They are greatly appreciated. And keep the prayers coming for our family. Thank you very much.
Sadly for Cindy and Ronnie Watts, they never gave credit to Shannan's family for allowing him to live. Cindy and Ronnie made an application to be considered as victims in the crime so they could participate in the victim statements during Watts' sentencing hearing. The application was denied. They are currently considering finding new legal counsel for Watts. Shannan's murder and her vast amount of social media videos released to the public has given an insight into the seemingly happy workings of a sweet, Colorado family, but in reality, Watts was cheating on his pregnant wife with a co-worker, told his parents that he no longer loved Shannan, and financial problems were apparent. This did not need to end in tragedy, but sadly it did. Incidents like this are on the increase. It shows us that hidden in the happiness is the realization that those you love and cherish have the capability to be the one to bring you life, and then take it away in a heartbeat.